This is Isaac Ferry with Crop Tech Consulting, bringing you this week's edition of Technology Tuesday. This week's session focuses on how to set the scale in your yield mapping software to aid in properly identifying management zones. So, as we've talked about before, we really like to see when we're evaluating yield maps, making management decisions for the following year, and definitely identifying management zones. We like to see as close to the raw data points as possible, so we don't like to have Kriged maps. Now, we've talked before about equal spacing versus equal area, and here's an equal spacing map. And we notice that because we use the equal spacing, we get very little happening here on the edges of our scale. Most of our field, 150 some acres, is within these two colors, and it shows up here. It makes it very hard to identify very many management zones. So we take this equal spacing map and we create an equal area map. If we go to that legend, we can look at it, and all of a sudden now we have equal number of acres landed in each one of these zones. And that increased the, acceptance, or it definitely increased how this map looks. Definitely more appealing as we move forward. So all of a sudden now we can see a lot of these little zones we didn't see before, and we can start to cut those out or identify them as management zones. Alright, but it's still Kriged. And when we look at that Kriging, we still don't really appreciate it as much. If we go down here and we go to that point map, all of a sudden we notice that these two maps don't look a whole lot alike. We notice we have multiple combines in here as we go through here, some of them at different swath widths, but we got some streaks that show up that are definitely combine made, not necessarily indicative of the soil or the weather or anything that was going on in this field management zone wise, but we have these man-made streaks, and when we Krieg them, they turn into zones, and now all of a sudden they do look like they're topography based or soil type based or something like that. They're not those straight streaks that we see when we're looking at it on a point by point basis. And so we like to stay away from the Kriging, and it allows us to see the actual data, and we can go to this field here and we can look at the point map, and here is where we're looking at a point map with a good calibration, and we see those zones, but they're not very defined because when we go to that one we realize we're on an equal spacing legend. So we can take this out to an equal points. We can apply that. And now all of a sudden we go and we start to see these management zones show up quite distinctively. And that's when we know we start to get a good calibration, and we can use these to create management decisions into the future because the outlines on these zones become very distinctive. Alright, and we can start to count on these, and we'll see if we do a good job of calibrating year after year, we'll see these zones show up. Alright. Now, we can Krieg this as well, but what we notice is when we do Krieg this map, these zones change a little bit. One of the things we look up in here is when we're actually looking through here, we have this red zone that comes all the way up in here, and it's fairly distinct. What we do notice is we do have a bit of combine lag. So when we zoom in here, we notice the combine's going this way as it passes through, and up here the combine's going that way, and they're running in land. So it's going this way for these 4 passes, it's going that way for those 4 passes. And that lag, when we go to our Kriged map, creates it less definitive because the lag's pushing it one way or the other. So now we have a zone up here that doesn't look nearly as bad as what's down here. But when we go back to our point map, we realize that really isn't the case, that the severity up in here, the yield drag up in here is as bad or worse as it is down here. It's just thinner. And because it's dragged one way or the other and thinner, it minimizes that effect. But if I was drawing a zone, I'd want to make sure I came all the way up here and included this zone here with this area down here. And I think some of the key as we move into variable rate and we increase variable rate acceptance, now we're starting to change populations, nitrogen rates, even hybrids on a foot-by-foot system across the field. The finer detail, the better job we can do it at defining these management zones, the better off we're going to be. And then also, when we start to look at these definitive zones as we move through here, we can start to look at year after year. So even if we have a year like this where our map isn't all that great, we wouldn't want to use this to make a lot of management zones. Now granted, we can go to our contour change to the contour map, and it makes our map look better, but it's not really realistic of what's happening out there. So we like to stay with the dot map, or what we call a raw data map. But we can see some of these zones here that come up do repeat themselves from previous years. So when we look at our good map from before, we see these zones that start to show up. We've mapped these zones out, and now that we know where we are, we can start to see some of those same parts of these zones repeat. So it gives us confidence in the zones that we have are the correct zones. They are still occurring. We can see some of these zones show up, this U shape that shows up over here. We take that off, that same U shape. But if we're going to use one of these to really fine tune our management zones, obviously it's going to be this map here and not the other one. The other one would be a base layer or a backup layer to prove that some of these zones are definitely reoccurring every single year. But we wouldn't want to use this map here to base a lot of our management decisions off. We wouldn't want to get carried away creating or identifying management zones in this field itself based upon only 1 year of a map like this. So it's crucial as we start to use these maps to move forward in variable rate management zones, zone by zone analysis. The integrity of these maps has to be paid attention to, and definitely the accuracy needs to be there. So in the calibration process, taking time to calibrate, making sure we calibrate often enough, and ensuring that accuracy becomes of the utmost importance. Garbage in, garbage out as far as that goes, so we want to make sure that we have good data to begin with so that we can make good management decisions based upon that data in the future. Thank you for watching this week's edition of Technology Tuesday. Please check our website for more information and other videos.